All right, this is from some dude called Chaos Lance. I think he might be new.
Oh, yeah, that fucking... All right, let's hear what he has to say.
So his question, and we've talked about it in the previous podcast, but
Yeah.
it's basically, who do you think is going to be the overall big bad for Dragonflight?
Well, I kind of, for those of you that don't know, Chaos Lance is actually one of the mods on the channel. So it's not like I'm calling a random viewer for something he did. It's just one of the mods.
No, just the people that work for him.
Working for me would require a pay. You guys are volunteers, shall we say.
True. I'm just messing with you.
Yeah, so let's say Accolonn is a good potential big bad, but what if we had an expansion that doesn't have an ultimate big bad? What if we have an expansion that culminates in the creation of an ultimate big bad? Morazond, Bradley just said it there. What if this expansion leads to the creation of Morazond? And for those of you that think Morazond wouldn't be an ultimate big bad, Morazond would be catastrophic. As soon as Morazond is born, we're in real trouble. Literally, the aspect of the Bronze Dragonflight turning and starting to fuck with the timelines, that's going to be really bad. I would actually be okay with an expansion that doesn't have an ultimate big bad. To be honest with you, I'm a little bit sold. Like, I'm a little bit. I feel the big bads is played out at this point. I want something that's closer to normal. You know, just closer to normal. Fallon, we didn't beat Morazond. We beat him in a version of an alternative timeline, which is the end time, right? It was a vision of what could happen. And us beating him there is effectively how he becomes Morazond. That penultimate end. In order, because remember, the prophecy for Nostormu is that he will die. And because he doesn't want to die, he is going to fuck around with the timeline so that he does not die. In him refusing to die, he becomes Morazond. So it's basically at the end of end time, Morazond is born in sort of all his glory, as it were. So Morazond would be a very bad enemy to have within World of Warcraft and would obviously be quite an interesting villain, as it were, for the future of the story, because again, it focuses the villain on sort of local. There's a couple of other options as well. Azshara, last time we saw Azshara, she said that she is going to claim the ultimate throne of power, whatever the fuck that means. That could obviously be on the Dragon Isles. So there is a good chance that we will meet Azshara again, this time trying to claim the ultimate power, whatever that means. Right. So Azshara is a good sort of candidate for the ultimate sort of big bad of the expansion. Moni, would you mind if there was no big bad?
Not in this one, no, because I go back to thinking about how Vanilla had several villains. I mean, arguably you could say maybe Onyxia and Neltharion, is that his? I think that's his son's name. Nefarian.
Nefarian, yeah.
Sorry. Those two were maybe the big bads in quotes, but Vanilla had a lot of just a bunch of open-ended threats. It wasn't until we got to the Burning Crusade that we started to have a centralized big bad, and even in Burning Crusade, we end up getting a different big bad after we take out Illidan. Like we go to Illidan, and then at the end of the Burning Crusade, they're like, oh wait, no, the actual ending big bad is Kil'jaeden.
Yeah.
And from a certain point of view, in my opinion, the only big bad that they've done right in an expansion is the Lich King and Wrath, and all the other ones have been kind of meh. And then also when you get into Shadowlands, they just screw up the Lich King in general, but that's just my personal gripe.
I would say Wrath, yes. Arthas was a great big bad in many ways because of just how long he's been around. I would say Deathwing was a pretty cool big bad. I kind of enjoyed Deathwing quite a lot. The fight itself, not so fucking much. That was more wipes than I ever wanted to have. But Deathwing was a pretty cool big bad. I sort of love the way that that Pandaria did it, where, again, much of the expansion is actually us just sort of sorting out localized problems for the pandas. And then towards the end, you have this sort of big bad that rises up, but wasn't really the big bad for the whole of the expansion, World of Draenor, again, sort of localized problems, but of course World of Draenor had its own litany of problems. Legion, I think we come to my favorite big bad of World of Warcraft, which would be Sargeras. But again, with Sargeras, yes, he is this big bad, and yes, he is responsible for a lot of the problems, but a lot of the problems is still very localized, right? It is still localized problems. And I feel that's whenever Blizzard is at their best, is when the big bad creates a bunch of localized problems that have to be taken care of, rather than everything just revolving around this big bad, and the big bad is the only. So think back to Legion. Yes, we dealt a lot with the demons and sort of the demon incursions, but very little of that had to do with like the Sargeras overarching nemesis bad guy that's just looming over us. You knew that he was behind a lot of this, but in essence, you were sort of just dealing with a localized problem that he had caused, but you're not really dealing with him, as it were. So yeah,
Legion is a very good example because you kind of ramp up in threat. You start to deal with the threat that is first instigated by Sargeras, because he's basically in the background, and the first thing he throws at us is Gul'dan from the alternate timeline.
Yes.
To pave the way for the Legion.
Yeah.
Then we have to start dealing with the Legion, and once we get Gul'dan down, he's like, okay, now I'll send Kil'jaeden since Gul'dan couldn't do it. So we have to deal with Kil'jaeden. And then finally we get to Argus itself, the seat of the Legion's power, where Sargeras is, just like you mentioned, chilling out around the planet.
Yeah.
And we have to deal with the world soul of Argus that has been his plaything for millennia.
Yep.
And to top it all off, one of the parts that I like the most about it is that we don't defeat him as players. The Pantheon takes care of their own. We take care of that weakened Titan soul that he tortured for years on end.
Yep.
But the big bad of Sargeras himself is handled by the Pantheon. Because in my mind, there's no earthly way that any of us, like 10, 25 people, however many you want in a raid, are going to take down Sargeras.
Well, we did take down the jailer, Titan++, if that means anything.
Yeah, true.
I still believe Shadowlands would have landed so different if it was the Shadowlands that attacked Azeroth and we dealt with the enemies of the Shadowlands now attacking Azeroth. So the Morsworn, Zuval's troops and everything, they were all on Azeroth and we were dealing with saving our home. I think Shadowlands would have been a much different expansion, like so much different to how it was ultimately perceived, where we went to this new world that kind of broke the veil, as it were, because now we learn that death isn't actually final. Death is actually just another beginning, and then they tell us that, hey, but actually death there would be final, and then there we learn that actually no, death there isn't even final, because Zereth Mortis just reanimates whatever the fuck dies in the Shadowlands, or uses that anima for something. So ultimately, I think the Shadowlands caused a lot of harm in the way that they dealt with the ultimate big bad and the penultimate big bad. This time around, I see a much clearer path to not having a big bad and rather just having a story and having these localized stories that so the first raid, for example, we deal with the Primalists, and the Primalists, these specific ones, worship Accolonn, and we have to take them down, right? And then maybe we can deal with another localized problem, and then with another one and sort of ramp up in power levels. But keep it close to home. Keep it close to mortal levels of power. Things that we would actually be able to take down, rather than putting us against these world-ending threats that, you know, you should not be able to take down. I feel if Blizzard does that, it would absolutely hit very close to home. It would make people enjoy it. And you have dragons. Fuck. Some of the best fights in World of Warcraft involves dragons. Dragon fights are so cool because there's a lot of positioning within dragon fights. Stand behind them and you get tail swiped. Stand in front of them and you get breathed on. You know, so there's a lot of cool shit that you can do with dragons that you can't really, like, you can do to some extent with other enemies, but dragons are just so iconic in how those fights work. So I'm really excited for it. I'm really excited to see what Blizzard can come up with this time around. And I think it all boils down to that age-old thing, you know? Yes, keep it simple, stupid. Don't try and oversell your big bad. Don't try and go bigger and badder every single time. Just give people something that they can believe in. Give people something that they find sort of obviously is a problem that should be taken care of, and just run with it. You know, just keep that sense of normality, and I think you'll be golden. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Oh, definitely. And on a final note, and I'll go back down and see if Ace is ready, or send one of the other guys in there up. This is always a fun, kind of like a highlight of the week. I really enjoy running this with you, and on the other side,
I appreciate you, bro.
It's causing me to come up with so many different topics that I'm like, how are we going to cover them all?
Oh, same. A lot of this serves as inspiration for future speculation stuff that I want to do, and so it's really cool to get the questions from the player base, you know, from the viewer base. And sort of see what people care about, what people ultimately want to see and want to deal with. So yeah, but can we get some hearts in chat for Morny and the work that he does for this? You know, he sits in that channel every single Monday and takes your questions and makes sure that this flows. So just some hearts in chat for Morny. Morny, really appreciate you, bro. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Let me go see if Ace is no longer AFK. If not, I'll send up the next one.
All right, please do.